A link between the very unfortunate incident that happened to a woman who appears to have been dragged on a bus to Mombasa. A link between that and the government. Allah, what are you talking about, Chris? Well, I have come across some mind-blowing information that I want to share with you today on my show. Yeah. And it just adds insult to injury to long-suffering Kenyans, because it would appear that our women, our sisters, our mothers, our wives, our daughters are not safe, and indeed are at an increasing risk. Okay? But then, as usual, let us start this story from the beginning. Now, one day in the 90s, when I was a very naive Kenyan, I had hardly started analyzing politics. We had a very interesting argument with an older Kenyan at the time. Yeah, somebody who was not very well educated, yeah, but he was a very experienced carpenter. And this is what our argument was about. It had just been discovered that the then Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dr. John Robert Ouko, had been murdered. And according to this older Kenyan, he was telling us not to look for anywhere else for clues. The government was involved. The government must be involved. Now, my argument, and my younger brother was also there at that time, our argument was that this was not consistent with the Moi profile, because we knew Moi was corrupt, we knew Moi did many things, but until that time, Moi had not been linked to any murder or any bloodletting. This was before the advent of multi-party politics. And this older Kenyan told us in the face that we were naive, we were blind, we were not seeing the obvious. Now, looking back in retrospect, of course that Kenyan was absolutely correct, and I was wrong. Although the Ouko case was a little complicated, but then we all know that the buck stops where? The buck stops with the president. If one of your cabinet ministers fires a bunduki and finishes another cabinet minister, and then they say, oops, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I lost my temper. Hey, that is exactly what happened. Would you stomach that, or would you hand over that cabinet minister of yours for prosecution? Okay? The reason why I've started with that story from a long time ago is because I want to make it clear to anybody taking in this information and who does not understand these things very well, to keep an open mind. Please don't be naive. Okay? I'm going to give you very solid facts and evidence. But please don't be naive. Don't be as naive as I was in 1990, February. Yeah? And fail to see what is very obviously there for all of us to see and to get very concerned. Please allow another quick story that is very relevant, yeah, from the past. There was a time I was picked up by the intelligence boys. Okay? Now most of you know that story and how it completely changed my life. Okay? Those of you who don't know it, please let that be a story for another day. Okay? Now, at least in those days, what they would do is that they would move you from police station to police station every few hours. The objective being to make it impossible for your people, your lawyer, to find you. One of the cop shops I ended up in was Kamkunji. Yeah, it is one of the most terrible, by the way, at least in those days. And in there with us was a Mungiki suspect. Now what struck me immediately was how this Mungiki suspect was being treated. He was not being treated like the others held in the cells. No! He was being handled with kid gloves. In fact, most of the policemen were bringing their friends to check out this Mungiki suspect. And I believe this can double up as the story for today from our archives. You know, we're celebrating 20 great years of the Kumekucha brand. This can double up for today. Of course, at the same police cells, I was also the other attraction. Huyu kijana, anapigana na serikali ya Moi. Kijana mdogo kama huyu. Mjasiri namna gani? This is a brave boy to challenge the mighty serikali of Moi. This is not a small man, etc., etc. And so I was able to identify the way in which I was being treated and the way my cellmate, a Mungiki suspect, was being treated was more or less the same. But the reason for the Mungiki suspect to be treated that way was different. You see, in case you didn't know, the whole uprising of Mungiki, believe it or not, was sponsored by the Moi government. Oh yes, many people don't know that. It was sponsored by the intelligence community at the time for political reasons. Yeah, to make it clear to Kenyans who wanted change that change was too chaotic, that better settle for the same old, which was predictable, peaceful, and stable. That was the whole idea. What I'm trying to say from all these stories is that this animal called the government has many, many tentacles. Some of them are very loosely linked to the government, while others are very firmly and deeply linked to the government. And sometimes they get up to some mischiefs that are very difficult to figure out. Yani, you just wonder how can the government be involved in this? What is the objective? Yeah, and of course, if you don't have the inside information, it becomes very difficult. And therefore, it is easy for you to brush it aside and say, no, stories are jaba. The government can be involved in this. Exactly the way we were talking in 1990, after the charred remains of Dr. John Robert Oko were found. But back to our main topic for today, which is the very unfortunate incident that happened to a young Kenyan lady, Delilah. Now actually this is how this went. The small information I was given, the tip-off I was given, made me go back to examine the facts surrounding this case. And I really kicked myself. Chris, how did you miss that? I mean, that one is so obvious. Anyway, let's not waste any more time. Let's get down to it. Now, the first thing that is very strange about this case, and very obviously so, is the fact that when the lady was taken to the Coast General Hospital, she was not booked in. She was not admitted. And this she told us very clearly, because when she asked for discharge, when she asked to be discharged from the hospital, she was together with a relative. She was told by the hospital personnel, that is impossible. We can't discharge you because we didn't admit you in the first place. Now, how strange is that? If somebody is involved in an accident, or if somebody is involved in an incident like this, and they're rushed to the hospital, what is the first thing the hospital does? They admit. That one is very, very important, and it is a first step. So why would the hospital skip that step? And remember, this was a very serious case. She had lost consciousness. That is considered an emergency, because you're not sure whether they've lost consciousness. You may have theories, but you're not sure. And of course, when somebody loses consciousness, we all know it's very obvious, death is very close. And therefore, it is a very serious emergency. But still, she was not admitted. And to make matters even more suspicious, She was told by somebody at the hospital, please don't follow up this. Just forget about it. It happens a lot. People follow up, but it goes nowhere. Not those words. People follow up, and it goes nowhere. Now, in what circumstances would you follow up on something involving the police and it goes nowhere? Answer that question for yourself. In what kind of circumstances? Friends, the answer is rather obvious. That is when there is a powerful person in government involved. Remember, the police have not even bothered to take a statement from the bus company. Remember that there have been many other similar incidences that have taken place, and the police have not gotten involved. Ordinarily, the police would have gotten involved a long time ago, and not only that, they would have issued an alert to members of the public. Please beware. This is happening on the buses to Mombasa. Please be careful. And then they would have also given us tips on how to avoid becoming victims. But strangely enough, in this case, it did not happen. Why? What is the whole biashara going on here? What is the whole objective of dragging people? And please don't be so naive as to think these are just common criminals looking to rob people. Don't even go there. For the simple reason that if that were the case, then there would be no cooperation from the bus company, especially the bus conductor. Because you'll remember Delilah's story. The bus conductor allowed somebody into the bus that did not have an assigned seat. The conductor allowed somebody in the bus, and the bus traveled from Nairobi all the way to Mtito and Day with this person on it. And yet he did not have a seat. The bus company did not have his details. Folks, a criminal will never be allowed such privilege and access. The only person or the only people who can be allowed such privilege and access are Jijazie. It's very obvious. Somebody very powerful, and definitely government. Okay? And so let us start by looking for clues, okay, to solve this mystery. Now, most of the victims are young Kenyans. One would think that older Kenyans would be better victims. Older people are bound to be carrying much more money on them. They're easier to trick, and they may not be as alert as younger Kenyans. Miaka imeenda, you can't deny that. And so naturally, somebody becomes slower. And now we remember something else linked to the Subaru boys. They preferred, a vast majority of the victims were very young Kenyans, especially those who have disappeared without trace. Okay, but also the ones whose remains have been found. And I want to remind you that some of the unfortunate victims have been found bila sehemu zingine za mili zao, without some certain body organs. Okay? I think we're all aware of that. We have had very strong denial on this in the media. But the facts on the ground, the truth of the matter, especially from the relatives of the victims, is clear. Okay? So hold on to that thought, put it at the back of your mind, and let us proceed. The way this seems to work is that victims are identified, they are dragged, and when they reach the coast, they are taken towards the hospital, and they are not booked in. The only reason for that is that there would be a possibility that they may vanish. And so there should be no evidence that they were booked into any hospital. I'm sure you get that. It is possible that maybe certain candidates with certain attributes are being looked for. And it is possible that in some instances, tests are required to confirm this. And therefore, if that person does not have what is needed, they're lucky. They survive. They regain consciousness at the hospital. And it seems that the hospital are so used to this kind of cases that they know exactly what to do. Don't book them in. Give them a certain treatment. And then release them. Now let me also remind you that we were told by Delilah that Coast General Hospital did not do any tests on her, did not do anything else on her, except administer by drip the drugs that brought her back to consciousness. Hey, isn't that strange? Na kuambia hii Kenya yetu, there are too many very evil things happening. Okay? Now, if the government is not involved, if there is absolutely no involvement of powerful people within government, then why have the DCI not moved on this case? Why haven't we heard of a serious investigation underway? Why? Because right now, it is all quiet. Officials are saying exactly the right things, or we're investigating. But the truth is, 4 days later, we have heard nothing. And this is an emergency. This is very serious. This should be very alarming under normal circumstances. And so, that points the hand very clearly at the same government that is supposed to protect us. And the buck stops to the government. Even if they're evil people who have befriended powerful people within government to do this kind of thing, the government still holds the responsibility for the safety of its citizens. Isn't that true? Isn't that more than obvious? The only way the government can sort out this issue, bring peace back to the hearts of Kenyans, is not by giving statements, is not by issuing any more statements by anybody. It is only by action. Okay? People recording statements, the government giving us progress on investigations, and especially this mysterious man who entered a bus and had no seat, and the bus company does not have their details. Hey, especially that one. And the government has the resources and the ability to get that person, pop, just like that, in a flash. So they need to move and they need to do something. Otherwise, Kenyans will be left with many assumptions that do not make this government look very good. Now, very quickly before I go, we are still in a celebratory mood. 20 years is not a short time, and you have a great opportunity to win a golden pass to all Kumekucha products, weekly intelligence briefings, special reports, and even special products to come out in future. All you have to do is that when you send in your birthday gift, 20th anniversary birthday gift, you just make sure that you also text me your email. And then on May 6th, I will announce the 20, because we're celebrating 20 great years, the 20 lucky people who will never, ever pay for anything, any special report, any WAB on this channel. So please use the details you see on your screens right now. This is also a great way of supporting this channel as we prepare ourselves for greater heights in the future. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.